Namaste World Racer, Sabina and Roger here. Let's watch Dhanurvedam, a documentary on ancient Indian warfare by the amazing YouTube channel Project SHIVOHAM. It was a request by our world sage, Sashank.
So as you know, we are diving into Ramanan Saga's Ramayana right now, and we also watched B.R. Chopra's Mahabharat, and there is some ancient Indian warfare in there. So we're going to watch this and learn all we can, because the Ramayana also has a bit of warfare, I believe.
And maybe we can discuss the topic of warfare and then the teachings of the Buddha, like how that fits together. At the end of the video, because I know there are some out there that are just confused. Why are we covering warfare on a spiritual channel?
Yeah, it's very contradictory. It may appear there's like this spiritual aspect of non-violence, yet at the same time, maybe we have to protect certain things.
Hit the like button for not war, for Dharma, for duty.
Dharma.
Subscribe if you aren't, and enjoy.
For outstanding performance in sports and games, the Government of India honors 2 awards, Arjuna and Dronacharya awards. These awards represent a rich legacy
Arjuna
of a
and
teacher-student
Dronacharya.
relationship and also how deep archery is into the Indian history.
Wow.
Dhanurvedam is a branch of Vedas, which is the foundational scripture for not just archery, but the complete science of warfare in ancient India.
So
Conflict
fast.
resolution in ancient India is of 4 levels. The first level is Sama, through negotiating with the enemy state and resolving the conflict. Or
nice.
Dana, by creating an alliance with the enemy state and turning them into your friends.
Cool.
The third level is Beda, by intimidating the enemy. And the fourth level is Danda, by finally waging a war if necessary.
So last
Dhanurvedam
resort.
governs
Cool.
how the final stage of Danda need to be executed on the war field. Lord Shiva is the first to narrate Dhanurvedam as a Upavedam to Yajurvedam. Eventually, sage Vasistha, guru of Lord Sri Rama, wrote a treatise on Dhanurvedam as Vasistha Dhanurveda Samhita.
Cool.
Vasistha Dhanurveda Samhita, Agni Puranam and Mahabharatam.
Oh, it's so fast.
Yeah, so as you know, we just started Ramanan Saga's Ramayana, and yeah, so we know who Vasistha is now. So he's part of this, right? So he apparently was the author of the Dhanurveda Samhita, if I understand it correctly. Because yeah, this is very fast. Wow. But anyway, that's very cool. So the teacher of Lord Ram is part of this.
That just spoke, that we just heard speaking.
Yeah.
That gave the amazing speech that let us melt away.
In episode 3.
That's him.
Written by Vedavyasa and Sri Ramayanam, written
Vedyas?
by Valmiki.
Oh,
All these
mother.
4 books together explain Dhanurvedam in its entirety.
Cool.
Dhanurvedam can be broadly divided into 4 different chapters. The first chapter is weapons and training, how to forge a weapon and how to train with that weapon. The second level is army construct, about the ranks and responsibilities. And the third level is strategy of the war, how to strategize both defensive as well as offensive missions. And the final one is the war ethics that needs to be followed all along.
Ethics.
Let us understand the first chapter on weapons and training.
Oh, wow.
Weapons are divided into 4 categories. The first one is Amukta, weapons that are not released from the hand during the attack, like mace. And the second one
cool.
is
Mace, yeah.
Mukta, which are the weapons that are always released from the attacker's hand, like a discus. And the third variety
The
is
chakra.
Mukta. It's like the weapons that can be released or directly used from the hand, depending on the situation, like a battle axe. The
Pashura?
fourth category is Yantra Mukta, which are always released from an instrument like a bow and arrow.
Oh, yeah.
Based on these 4 types, fighting with a spear, fighting with bow and arrow, fighting with a sword, wrestling, using a dagger, a discus, and a mace. These are the 7 categories of fighting that Dhanurvedam explains in every detail, right from forging a weapon, practicing with it, and how to use it effectively in the warfield. Take archery for instance. It explains about how the bow, the arrow, the string, the target, and the shooting techniques, all the technicalities of these dimensions of archery are explained in Dhanurvedam. The bow. Sage Vasistha takes Lord Sri Rama's bow Sharanga as a reference and goes on explaining how a bow needs to be built. He says that Sri Rama's bow is of 7 vitasti or 5.5 feet, made out of the horns of Sharaba deer indigenous to Kashmir. For general purposes, he says that the bow should be of 4 feet length and largely dependent on the height of the archer. The string. It explains that a string needs to be of a silk thread or the sinew or the tendon of a deer or a bison.
Wow.
Arrow. The arrows are of three types. Masculine, with more weight distributed at the rear part, intended for long range. Feminine, with more weight distributed on the spearhead for short range, and equally distributed weight for practice purposes, the third one, a neutral category. It gives the designs for different types of arrowheads based on the need. The first one is a hacksaw-shaped Aramukha for piercing through the skin, Kshurapa for cutting the enemy hands, Gopucha for general aim, Ardhachandra for aiming at the neck of the enemy, Suchimukha for piercing through the armor, Bhalla for internal organ damage, Vatsadanta for cutting the bowstring, Dviballa for dodging enemies' arrows, Karnika for dodging heavy weapons, Kakatunda to create a blow kind of an effect. Dhanurvedam explains the procedures to forge a poisonous effect into the arrowheads. Here is an example.
Poison.
People's tree's bark, along with rock salt and costus plant, should be ground in cow's urine. The paste should be applied on the arrowhead, heated on fire. Such kind of an arrows will have immediate poisonous effect once they pierce into the enemy's body. Like this, it explains about many other plants and the alchemy behind it to create such kind of poisonous effects. From here on, Dhanurvedam gets into a metaphysical dimension which is very complex for us to understand. It talks about Astra. Astra and Shastra are two types of weapons. A Shastra is a physical weapon like a sword or an arrow, while Astra is a magic spell attached to that weapon. Then it becomes an Astra. This particular slokam, it explains that there are 7 highly invincible astras in existence. Brahmastram, Brahmadandam, Brahmasira, Pashupatastram, Vayuvyastram, Agneyastram, Narsimhastram. Each astra has a mantram associated with it, and Dhanurvedam explains it all. It gives the mantram associated with Brahmastram, and it says that the archer should chant it for 10,000 crore times for using it for once in the battle. Just because it is difficult to understand, it would be foolish to say it's a myth. So let's leave it here and proceed. It explains about the target. A still archer and a still target is called a sthira. A still archer and a moving target is called chala. A moving archer and a still target is chala chala. And both the archer and the target moving is advaya chala. Last but most important of all, based on the range of the target and the type of the target, there are 8 body postures: Pratyalidha, Alidha, Vishaka, Sampada, Visampada, Darudurakrama, Garudakrama, Padmasana. And there are 5 ways of holding the arrow: Pataka, Vajramushti, Simhakarna, Kakatundi and Matsari. And 5 ways of drawing an arrow: Kaishika, Satvika, Vatsakarna, Skanda, Bharata. It's all about orchestration and the timing. Let's see practically how this works in real world. Lars Anderson, a Danish archer, tried to replicate the archery techniques explained in Mahabharata.
Wow, cool.
Here's how he's dodging an incoming arrow.
Wow, he hit the arrow. Holy.
Destroying an incoming arrow again in sitting posture.
Oh my god, that is actually
shooting
possible.
3 arrows at one shot.
Whoa.
This one particularly was explained as a specialty
Oh my
of Barbarica.
god, that's actually possible. I
yeah.
thought it's because there's a, I don't know, highly
Shooting
like, I don't
2
know.
arrows at one shot.
Well, this guy's highly developed, no doubt. He's a pro.
This one is widely heard of, how Arjuna shot a target above while looking downward below. It is also the same pose in Arjuna Award of Dharma. Dodging an
He
incoming
was
arrow with
looking
a
in a
masher,
mirror. Holy
or
smacks.
dodging an incoming masher.
Oh
with
my
an
god, it is
Do check out his channel. I'm leaving you the
He's
link in
hit
the
a
description
knife.
below.
Oh,
Going
wow.
all the way back. What you've seen is
That's
just
cool.
5% of the archery explained in Dhanurvedam.
Just 5%.
Still 95% of it
Oh,
I couldn't tell, of
wow.
course, it's impossible. Same way, for all other categories,
No, that's
every
huge.
technicality is explained in great detail. Let us now get to the next chapter, the army construct. The grand epic of Mahabharatam details out how the army construct need to be. It says that both Kauravas and Pandavas had 18 battalions of army lined up for Kurukshetra.
Yeah.
A battalion in Mahabharatam is referred as Akshauhini. Mahabharatam details about how the Akshauhini construct needs to be. It says that Akshauhinya Parimanam Narashvaradantinam. Let us see what it means.
Yeah.
Akshauhini comprises of Nara, infantry, Ashwa, cavalry, Ratha, chariotry, and Dampi, elephantry.
Elephantry.
Take a closer look. Yes, that's chess. These 4 divisions of the army are considered as the 4 limbs and called as Chaturanga, from which chess originated. What you're seeing on the screen is the oldest written record of how chess is derived from the format of an Akshauhini.
Smokes.
Let's break down Akshauhini. 1 chariot, 1 elephant, 5 foot soldiers, and 3 horsemen, All put together is the smallest unit of the battalion, Patti. That's Patti. 3 Pattis make 1 Senamukha, 3 Senamukhas 1 Gulma, 3 Gulmas 1 Gana, 3 Ganas 1 Vahini, 3 Vahinis 1 Prudhana, 3 Prudhanas 1 Chamu, 3 Chamus 1 Anikini, and finally 3 Anikinis 1 Akshahuni. So 1 Akshahuni is 21,870 elephants, 21,870 chariots, 65,610 horsemen, 1,09,350 foot soldiers. All put together, this is the big number which finally indulged in the war of Kurukshetra.
Wow.
Yeah, that was incredible.
So the size of the army.
Incredible. Look how
Here is
much
how
bigger
command
the
structure in an
Kauravas
Akshahuni
were.
is.
Oh yeah,
The
massive.
foot soldier is called Padatik. 12 such Padatiks under the command of 1 Ashwarohi. 12 Ashwarohis under the command of 1 Gaja. This entire unit under the command of a Ardharadhi.
Hey, look, he has like a...
12 Ardharadhis
Yeah,
under the
Astra.
command of a Radhi.
Oh, of course.
12 Radhis under the command of a Atiradhi. 12 Atiradhis under the command of a Maharadhi. 12 Maharadhis under the command of a Atimaharadhi. And finally, 24 Atimaharadhis under the command of a Mahamaharadhi. This is the complete
Bhishma.
command structure from top down in an Akshahani. Let's get to the third chapter, strategy of the war. Any war is all about defending one's army, attacking the enemy's army, and emerging victorious. A thought is always stronger than the might, and this is where Dhanurvedam immensely focuses on strategizing
The thought,
battle.
yeah. The mind frame.
Based on many factors like battleground conditions, impending dangers, objectives of the war, strengths of one's military, weaknesses of the enemy's military, taking all these into account, Dhanurvedam designs 7 different battle formations. They are Dandavyuham, Shakatavyuham, Varahavyuham, Matsyavyuham, Padmavyuham, Suchimukhavyuham, and Garudavyuham.
What was the
These
awful
formations metaphorically
formation?
represent the name they carry. Take Varahavyuham for instance. If we expect a danger from sideways, then a Varahavyuham is advised by Dhanurvedam. Imagine a king along with his battalion crossing through a mountain range. And because of the mountains, a stealthy ambush is expected from the sideways. Then more military is beefed up towards the sides, and the front and the rear part of the battalion can have a less number of. So that forms an elliptical shape metaphorically called as Varahavyuham.
Cool.
If you came across the grand epic of Mahabharata, you would
I
have definitely heard of the names Abhimanyu and Chakravyuham
Yeah.
or Padmavyuham.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Dhanurvedam illustrates the very blueprint of Chakravyuham. Let us see how it is.
Wow.
Ah, it was
This
the
is how
chakra
Padmavyuham
This
looks like
formation.
at the top.
Yeah.
The
Oh.
battalions form concentric rings coming out in a pattern of a lotus flower. It has
awful.
5 highly invincible features, making it one of the most deadliest formations of all. Number 1, impenetrable entry. The entry into this formation is almost impossible. The second one is increasing levels of difficulty. As you break into the levels, you need to face stronger and stronger warriors towards the center. On top of it, each circular level alternatively rotates in a clockwise and counterclockwise fashion,
Jeez.
creating an immense amount of psychological trauma for anybody who enters that formation. And finally, if a warrior manages to intrude into the center of the formation, as and when that happens, the entire Padmavyuham collapses to the center, making it impossible
To get
for
out.
the intruder to get out of this formation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
This
just
is
clearly.
how
get
Kauravas and
murdered.
Pandavas encountered each other with their respective Vyuhams on the 18-day battle of Kurukshetra.
Oh, breakdown.
Dhanurvedam goes on explaining how to train war animals, how to treat wartime injuries, how to train the military to move
war
from one
injuries.
formation to other depending on the battle situation. It goes on explaining everything about it. There
Massive.
we get to the
Wonder how
last
long
and
it is.
most important chapter of Dhanurvedam, the war ethics.
Yes.
If anyone goes through the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata, especially the wartime phases, it would be incredibly surprising how the warriors in these epics did not kill their enemies even though they had them at the tip of their sword, just because the Yuddha Dharmam or the war ethics defined by Dhanurvedam doesn't permit them to kill at that point.
Remember.
The war ethics is a vast subject in Dhanurvedam. Here I quote 2 important principles of war that commands to put ethics before victory or even one's own life. An unconscious or unarmed or retreating or surrendering enemy should never be attacked. Of course, a woman and a child should never be attacked. The ancient code of war is still seen today being followed in Kalaripayattu, one of the oldest forms of martial arts surviving in the whole world. It is believed that Lord Shiva narrated Kalaripayattu to Parashurama, and from Parashurama up until today, many generations are carrying on the legacy and the legend of Kalaripayattu. Kalaripayattu gives utmost importance to the ethics of the war and puts discipline at the center of it.
Nice.
Same way, take Kung Fu for instance, which was started by Bodhidharma, an Indian king turned monk in China. It focuses on having uncompromisable ethics even before getting started with the martial arts.
Shaolin.
As well, Kung Fu derives a vast portion of it from Kalaripayattu. That brings us to the end of Dhanurvedam. Thank you for watching.
Wow.
Krishna.
Humble tribute to the heritage of Bharat.
Wow, actually I have goosebumps. Gotta say, I did not expect to actually like the video very much, and I ended up loving it.
Yeah, jeez.
Wow.
All about war. I love it. This actually might be my favorite video that we've watched from Project SHIVOHAM so far. That was incredibly informative, and I love how they just get into the vastness of these, of the Vedas, right? And how incredibly immense they are and their origination, right? So Lord Shiva's involved, and then to Parashuram, and then Lord Rama's teacher, right? And they're all included in that. It's just immense.
Can you explain again how Lord Shiva is involved? I forgot.
Well,
I missed it.
I think there was a few different ways, but the one that I remember clearly is that it was Lord Shiva who imparted the wisdom to Lord Parashuram, right? So in Lord Parashuram is, of course, an avatar of Vishnu, the one prior to Lord Ram, and he's the one involved with direct warfare, right? Where he actually was on a mission to wipe out the Kshatriyas, I believe, because they had degenerated at that time and they weren't following, the ethics, perhaps, of what's involved, like, protecting the society so much. So then it was his duty to eliminate them at that time, if I understand correctly. So my favorite part, of course, is the ethics at the end, right? And breaking it down, because we saw that during the Mahabharata, where, of course, the Pandavas were following the guidelines to the T at the beginning of the war, but then towards the end, they had to deviate a little bit, because ultimately it's victory that's most important, especially if you're fighting on the side of Dharma, right? You have to defeat the adharmic forces, right? And that's what's most important in war, but you're not going to degenerate and start committing, unvirtuous actions, until the enemy does so. And then, of course, you have to adapt, right? And that was very clear in the case of Abhimanyu, made it to the center where they did not need to defeat him the way that they did. They could have captured him, right? Because I believe he was unarmed at the end, and then from the back. Yeah, the detail's immense, and then just seeing the size of those armies. And the Kauravas had a way bigger army, but it also mentioned in this video that it's the mindset, right? So, like, what are you fighting for? That plays an incredible impact. And of course, the Pandavas had Lord Krishna on their side, so they had, of course, the better mindset, right? So then breaking down all the weapons, right, from the beginning, even how to create your weapons, and then the example of the bow throughout was like, the details, right? And that's something that just shows how ancient it is and how, important these scriptures are, because you can't make this stuff up. In modern times, we're not focused on these sorts of things. There's different types of weapons, like guns and stuff, but, back then, it shows that the ancient civilization was much more sophisticated than, we consider, especially in the Western world, where we've been indoctrinated to believe that, we're the most advanced civilization now. And then prior to this, we were all barbarians, and we had no wisdom and knowledge. And it wasn't until, Western science showed up that we actually evolved. But that's not the case at all. We've actually been de-evolving since the ancient times.
Did you actually read that quote?
No.
I just read it.
Okay.
Read it loud.
A warrior who dies in the battlefield protecting Brahmins, women, children, cows and his country will attain ultimate liberation. Moksham. Incredible, right? So there is an aspect of warfare, if it's done for the right purposes, of protecting, aspects of society, because I learned that too also from David Hawkins. He mentioned it, that warriors fighting on the battlefield for a cause, for like God and country, and to protect, society from invading forces. Yeah, they're doing a noble cause, and a lot of them actually attain the higher realms. And we also, of course, witnessed that during the Mahabharata, the battlefield, right? In modern times, we see war and battle. Well, in these times, it is pretty degenerate, but back then it was, wars were being fought on principle. And then the other thing that's important too is that prior to going to war, there's those three other categories of diplomacy. So you're trying to avoid the war at all costs. And we also saw that in the Mahabharata, right? Where even Lord Krishna, went to Dhritarashtra to, try to attain peace, even asking for just 5 villages. And ultimately, Duryodhan would not have that. So then, but they tried everything that they could to avoid war. And then when it was inevitable, they had to do what they had to do, to protect society, to uphold Dharma. So all the tactics and strategies and everything happening in those epics is based on, spiritual teachings from prior age, right? So it wasn't just even Lord Krishna. Of course, he was teaching everybody through the unfoldment of the Mahabharata, but at the same time, that wisdom was already established from prior generations, from Parashuram's age, and then Lord Rama's age, and then the Mahabharata. And then now we see that a lot of this is lacking in the modern world, and it's just adding to the chaos that we see everywhere. So we need to go back to the roots.
Back to the roots. I think you already explained it a little bit, but can you touch on it again? Like, how do the Buddha's teachings fit into?
Yeah, so for me, the Buddha was teaching, to seekers seeking liberation, now in this lifetime. So the people I see that were drawn to the Buddha and the Buddha's teachings were, renunciates from, previous lifetimes that were already on the path, and then they were close to liberation already. So he was focused on them, and he wasn't focused on other teachings. He was like, when people were asking him complicated questions, a lot of times he wouldn't even answer them because it wasn't important for liberation at that time. So it was, important to just focus on the goal and the attainment of that goal right now. So in that sense, it was very nonviolent. It was very just meditative, going within, ready to awaken, entirely. But at the same time, you can't do that, in a world that's just full of chaos. Because even at that time, there was invasions and people attacking, people of different beliefs, people of different nationalities and culture. Wars have been happening, since forever. So there needs to be an aspect of society that's protecting, the borders, so that things like the Buddha's teachings can flourish. And at that time, if it wasn't for, some protective aspects happening, like the Kshatriyas, then the Buddhism wouldn't have even flourished, right? They probably would have been destroyed, like if there was infighting. So that's the incredible aspect of Sanatan Dharma that allows for, okay, these guys believe in this, and they're going to do this, and they're going to seek liberation. And we don't entirely believe what they believe, but we're going to protect them. Right? It's important. So in this modern age, so of course, we know the Indian army is massive, and they're doing what they have to do to protect the borders, right? Especially as, this resurgence has taken place with PM Modi, and then, Sanatan Dharma is flourishing once again.
Thanks so much for joining us. This was highly, highly interesting.
And thanks, Sashank.
Absolutely.
For this request.
Sashank, you are a star. You unlocked your green chakra, the heart chakra already. Thank you so much for your ongoing support over months and months and months.
A true world sage.
Yes.
Guiding us onward. So keep the requests coming, because this one was fantastic. So now we're ready when we get into the war parts of the Ramayana. Now we understand more things. So we are learning as we go. If you guys are learning too, let us know in the comments section what were your favorite parts of this video. And also, I want to shout out Project SHIVOHAM because they are doing incredible work. And it's my wish that they would have more views and more subscribers. So let's boost that channel. I think it should have 1 million subscribers by now. So go subscribe if you haven't already, and go binge some of their videos because they're incredibly informative. So Project SHIVOHAM, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all, well raisers. We love you.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.